Okay, next topic. John, today I want to talk about VPN solutions. I know we had quite a few clients who were using our open VPN solution product, and then this COVID crisis hit, and all of a sudden we're getting lots of calls, buying more licenses, expanding the numbers of users.
hmm
What's going on with that, and why is that? Why is our uh, COVID crisis causing this to happen?
So many folks now are expected to still do their jobs but work from home. And so what they're having to do is connect from their home computer, maybe a laptop from work they took into the office, or their home computer, if it's got antivirus and everything else updated on it and safe. They're connecting from home across their cable modem or their Fios connection, whatever they have, and having to dial into or connect into their corporate network. And so previously, on average, a lot of these companies had maybe a license for 10 simultaneous users, maybe 20. Now all of a sudden, some have 50 to 100, 200 users at the same time that all need to work. So we've had to go around and upgrade a lot of the licenses to allow the OpenVPN AS concentrator to have all those simultaneous users be in at the same time.
Okay, so that sounds like that's a business VPN solution.
Mm-hmm.
But I hear a lot of these commercial VPN solutions just talk about it as a way to kind of hide your IP address and to browse
Right.
places. So
Steal
that's
movies, steal content you're not supposed to get that are rights restricted in your geographical area.
so it's really not the same thing at all. That's kind of the difference between a commercial application and maybe what you get for your consumers that you're buying. So again, so it's not the same thing if you've gone to one of the backup solutions. Um,
Those are basically what you would call hide my data VPNs.
right.
What they're selling is essentially when you go to a Starbucks cafe and connect. If you're on the wireless when you're using the internet, even though most websites nowadays are SSL, when you're using the internet, there are certain things that you send that are not encrypted. And so what they're basically saying is connect to my VPN in California or Timbuktu, wherever, it doesn't matter. You connect to that VPN, you're using a web proxy server on that VPN, you can basically ensure that all your the packets that you send and receive are all encrypted by that VPN. So you are using the internet safer than perhaps if you weren't using the VPN. That's somewhat debatable. What I think most people honestly use it for is if in their particular region they can't watch a game or they can't watch a live stream an event because of rights restriction or geographic or geo IP blocking. They're saying, okay, well I'm going to go and hop on this VPN and evade those content provider restrictions.
Okay. So a lot of times those VPN servers that they're actually logging into could be across the country or even outside of the country somewhere.
A lot of them have to be in the country that you're trying. If you're trying to access content that's restricted to a certain country, they obviously have to be living or mapped to appear as if they were in that country. And if you are not careful about where your what company you're using for your VPN, certainly your data could be actually leaving the U.S. In which case it may not be compliant. But again, these are typically home users, individual users that are using those work safe VPNs or browse the internet safe VPNs. That's not what we're talking about here. Those are a lot of people get confused about those and they think that, oh, because I have a VPN I'm somehow safe. No, that has nothing to do with you accessing your corporate data and having that be safe, secure, confidential.
Right. That's why I want to make sure we cleared that up. So the number one is that's not necessarily protecting your corporate data, and those servers you don't know where they are. Where is our clients when they have a VPN server
Mm-hmm.
and we create a VPN for their network? Where is their server located for their VPN?
For larger clients that have their own virtualization infrastructure, we will drop their VPN appliance directly into their headquarters. For smaller clients that maybe don't have an on-site server, that's fine too. We'll actually dial them into our data center presence, and they can access their cloud that way. Either way, you're safe. You have a dedicated IP address for your VPN. It's not moving around. It's not in some random country, and the software that you're using is safe and secure. It's using the latest cryptography protocols, latest versions of
Right.
SSL libraries that you can get that are safe and secure. And again, the idea is that when you connect from your home network, you're not going across the internet with no encryption. Every piece of data that you pull off of your server, every file that you send, receive, every spreadsheet that you open, every application dialog screen that you're talking to is 100% encrypted. Whether your application is brand new and supports encryption natively or whether it doesn't, the VPN tunnel or wrapper around it makes sure that everything is encrypted. And the other big benefit that the VPN will have is that your credentials are checked when you log in. So you don't just click a button and get in. You have to supply your Windows credentials, And a lot of our customers are now asking for what's called two-factor authentication, which basically means when you connect to the VPN, you put in your username and password, and you also have to put a challenge in that comes directly to your mobile phone. We're using Google two-factor authenticator, as well as another company called Duo that allows you to basically say, hey, you have to have two pieces of information. You have to have the right username, the right password, and you also have to have a phone, a mobile device that's already been set up to talk to the two-factor authentication. Without that, you can't get in. That's a really strong way of preventing anybody from eavesdropping, stealing a laptop, and then breaking in and trying to access your corporate data.
Right. So you got authentication. It could be single factor or multi-factor authentication. It's going to make sure you got the right things. All of your business and corporate data is going to be encrypted across that network, right?
Yep.
And how about like if they're a remote user at home, but they also have their little laptop and they're doing Netflix and Hulu and things like that, and letting their kids do schoolwork at home? Is all that stuff going to be running through the encryption and back through your VPN server too?
Well, the answer to that is it depends. The way that Richweb configures our clients, we use what's called split tunneling. Split tunneling was originally a Cisco term, but all VPNs now either support it either as an off or on switch. And basically what split tunneling means is when you are connecting to your VPN, you're only sending the data to your corporate location or your corporate office, your corporate servers that needs to be sent in order for those applications to work. If you're using the internet, if you're pulling up Netflix, that's actually going directly to the internet. So you're not burning up your corporate VPN bandwidth, corporate VPN resources, sending all that Netflix data through it. I would say 95% of our customers want their VPN set up in what's called split tunneling mode, which is what I just described.
Right.
If you don't want it set up that way, there are some business cases where you might not want it set up that way. It's a little bit more secure to not use split tunneling, and that basically says if you have a corporate resource, a laptop that's sitting at someone's home network, as soon as they connect, and if they want to connect to anything, they have to log into the VPN. So you can control what DNS servers they use. You can control, have a little bit tighter control over what network activities they can do that are when they're not trying to access one of your servers. You can block all that if you want. We talked earlier about a walled garden in one of our previous episodes. You could actually set up a VPN walled garden where you say, look, you can come in, you can access my applications, and you can't use that laptop for anything else. You can't turn it on, you can't use Netflix, you can't use Hulu, you can't give it to your kids and play games on it. A lot of secure companies that are more secure are going to have that policy with their company-provided laptops. Now, obviously, if you're bring your own device, those policies are going to be a lot less restrictive.
Okay, so it sounds like that's one other advantage of our VPN solution for our commercial clients is that we can customize that to whatever their needs are, to what level, number one, authentication, and then what level of encryption for how much content and how much data are you going to be encrypting.
What paths are encrypted? And you also have to remember that if you want to encrypt all your data, you have to have the bandwidth to do that.
Exactly.
If you're going to allow folks to use Netflix and you're going to force them to encrypt all their data and tunnel back through your network, you better have a bigger pipe than a company that's deciding not to do that.
Gotcha. So how about from a cost perspective? This is a really expensive product, it sounds like, with all this opportunity to customize and make it work the way you want and the way you need it to work.
OpenVPN is there's two flavors, essentially. There's a non-commercial version where you can download it, you can install it, you can play with it for free. And then there's a commercial version. We use both, actually. The commercial version is what you're going to install on a VPN concentrator, which is essentially a VM that's put in our cloud or in your cloud, and your users are going to connect to that via web interface, download the client, and authenticate to that, and then use that as their secure conduit. You don't have to use the commercial version. The free version is unlimited, but the free version works best if you're running an operating system like Apple or Linux. It's a little bit more difficult to set up the free version because you have certificate. Your only real option to use the free version is certificate-based authentication. You can do Active Directory authentication on top of that, but you end up managing individual certificates for all of your clients. Nobody really wants to do that. OpenVPN is priced very attractively. We have a package deal that allows you to get 10 licenses, your concentrator hosted in our cloud, plus a shared SSL certificate that enables it to be end-to-end secure that we update for you automatically, as well as patches and provisioning. All that stuff. It's basically a one-stop shop for $235 a year. So when you think
for 10 users, right?
For 10 users, yeah. So when you think about that, I have for $235 a one-time cost or an annual cost I'm not paying a monthly cost for that, and I can have 10 users log in at the same time. For a small business, that's a really good deal. And if you need 20 users, it's easy for us to add licenses.
$23.50, about $24 a user a year. So that's about $2 a month.
It's what it works out to, yes.
Yeah, I think a lot of your commercial or even the residential consumer VPNs are going to be at least $2 a month to use. So you're getting really a commercial product for the same price you're going to be paying for one of those inexpensive consumer brands. It's really not going to protect your data and could be shipping your data overseas and you don't even know it.
Yeah, there really is no comparison. The consumer VPNs, there's no home for them to phone home to. They're not protecting any of your corporate data. They're claiming to protect some of your web browsing, but that's a somewhat dubious claim at best, I think. The whole point of a commercial VPN, again, is to protect your corporate data. So that's a corporate policy that your corporate IT folks will want to enforce. The work from home VPNs are going to require a corporate VPN. You cannot work from home using a consumer grade.
Just don't want anybody to feel like they're safe when they're not. Now that they're having to work from home and they don't really want to, or they don't want to care to.
Right.
How about, is there anything else that's going to be required if we're going to set up a company to do this, like as far as hardware or any other equipment they would have to do this?
Well, the nice thing about OpenVPN AS, the commercial solution, is it's a VM. So we deliver it as a VM. It can run on ESX, it can run on Hyper-V, it can run on KVM. So no matter what hypervisor platform you're using, it's very easy to install. You can also run it in the cloud if you want. There's some ready to download cloud deployment packages you can use. We don't recommend those for work from home VPNs because you typically, unless you are already in Azure or AWS, if you're running a private cloud, you want to have your VPN concentrator in the private cloud. It's again very simple to set up. You could run it on your own hardware if you want, but we typically don't recommend that. So if a customer comes to us and says, I need an OpenVPN AS deployed, we deploy it in our cloud. And then I don't want to confuse folks here, but we're going to set up a site-to-site VPN or a point-to-point VPN, also called a LAN-to-LAN VPN. That LAN-to-LAN VPN will take us from our cloud over to what resources are at your corporate office you need to get to. So if you have, for example, 2 servers in your office and neither server has been virtualized, obviously now is a hard time if you haven't already virtualized to get that piece done. So you're typically going to want to access those servers as is. We're going to put a small virtual appliance, drop that virtual appliance in on your network. Could be a physical appliance. And we're going to create a LAN-to-LAN tunnel, typically a router or a firewall that's going to talk back to our cloud. And that way we can keep the OpenVPN appliance in our cloud, where we can do patches, we can do maintenance, we can reboot it, we can add more licenses to it, we can troubleshoot it and all that stuff.
Okay, so if it's a small business, less than 10 people, around 10 workers, they have one little server sitting in their office, and they need to have one of those firewalls or routers. What's that going to cost them, or what's our solution for that?
We have a very inexpensive solution that's easy to put in. You do have to have a static IP address. We put a Cisco router in, a small Cisco 890 series, 891, 892 model. We can also drop a small firewall in if the customer doesn't have a firewall. Some customers we talk to, when they may inquire about a VPN, but they actually don't even have a firewall set up at their office. They're using a Comcast cable modem as a firewall. That's not going to work. You're not going to want to establish a site-to-site VPN. You're not going to want to have that thing controlling your OpenVPN access. So we typically will put a small router or a small firewall in and bring your security back to our colo and then connect the OpenVPN instance that way.
So for another $30 or $40 a month, we had those little device on the
managed services. It's very, very affordable, very inexpensive.
That creates your tunnel between the cloud VPN and your network.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where all your traffic passes, and nobody can get in there.
Nobody can get in, and the other beautiful thing about it is you're already positioned to move to the cloud. So if you have an issue where, Murphy's Law, right? If you're in the middle of this COVID thing and your server dies and you need your server replaced, you've already got a tunnel to the cloud. It's easy to spin up a virtual server, move your data there, and you're good to go.
Okay. So I think that sum it all up, that sounds like for like $235 for a 10-user license, and $30 or $40 a month for a little appliance you can put on your network to make sure it's safe and secure. You've got a solution for 10 workers to work remotely. All their corporate data information they're going to use is going to be encrypted back and forth across that tunnel. We can have single or multi authentication set up so that you only get the right people allowed to get into your network, and everybody works from home and you're all safe and secure.
Mm-hmm. Easy to expand. So if you have 12 users, 15 users, or you need to expand it out later, it's very easy to add additional license pack. It takes us a few minutes to order the pack from OpenVPN and put it on there, so that's quick and easy. Again, I want to stress that to have a site-to-site VPN, this is something that maybe smaller companies, smaller businesses might run into. If you don't already have a static IP, you will have to order one of those.
And order a static IP, maybe another $5 to $10 a month on your
Typically, yeah.
ISP services and that. Then again, that's your solution.
For a larger business, they already have a static IP, usually an allocation of a block of 5, maybe more. It's very easy for them to add their virtual appliance, and they're up and running in a matter of minutes.
And that's why I've been adding business over the past 2 or 3 weeks for companies trying to do this, and really expanding on our current user base, then buying more licenses so more of their workers can work from home.
One thing I should point out when talking and comparing different VPN solutions, OpenVPN is an SSL-based VPN. It's not an IPsec-based VPN. It's just as secure. They use the same underlying crypto protocols, but the OpenVPN solution tends to run a lot faster and to be a lot less fiddly to set up. If you have I don't want to name other firewall vendors, but if you're using currently an IPsec-based client, you'll probably know it because you are constantly having folks that complain, well, my VPN's stuck, VPN's running slow, the client won't connect, I constantly have to update my client. Those sort of problems happen with what we call legacy VPN solutions, and they typically were IPsec-based. There's nothing wrong with IPsec. IPsec is secure, but SSL-based VPNs, OpenVPN in particular, make for better road warrior VPNs where it's one individual user attaching to a corporate concentrator versus IPsec. IPsec is better suited when you have a LAN-to-LAN, like a network on this side, a network on this side, and you're going to bring up a tunnel between the networks. So IPsec is good for computers to talk to each other. OpenVPN is a much better solution when you want to deploy a road warrior VPN, especially if you want two-factor authentication, Active Directory integration. OpenVPN also supports either Radius or LDAP, so you can authenticate via either one of those two mechanisms to get your Active Directory users, your Active Directory credentials able to be used for authentication.
Well, that's a lot of tech talk jargon.
I know.
But I really think the bottom line, correct me if I'm wrong though, but the SSL helps you do that. A lot of this through software, where if a lot of your IPsec is going to be on legacy-based hardware that may have cost a whole lot of money to put in, and probably it's not going to operate quite as fast now as it used to, or compared to the modern technology.
That's pretty accurate. A lot of IPsec firewall solutions that involve or offer road warrior connectivity are typically on a monolithic firewall box. That firewall box maybe is doing your site-to-site VPNs. It might be doing your road warrior VPNs. It's trying to do your policies. It's got a lot of things it's trying to do. And here's the problem: if one of those components is out of date and you have to update it and reboot it, it can take your whole network down. So from a separation of logical functions perspective, it's better to have the VPN, the road warrior VPN, separate, running on its own node where it's not going to be running with a firewall.
Better, faster, cheaper. Let's stop this while the phone's ringing. But thanks everybody, and we'll talk to you again soon.
The phone never stops ringing.